Well, it's the first time for me here at the DevOps Days in Geneva. It's the first time for me here at the DevOps Days at all. And let's see, I've tried something new. Maybe it comes good, maybe it will not come good at all. I will ask you at the end, what will you think about this presentation? Normally, I'm giving presentation at database conferences, and there I know that all of the audience has a very, very big, deep knowledge in databases. And when I was preparing myself, I was thinking maybe here it's just not exactly the same setup. I think you're more spread, and therefore I will just start with a couple of questions, just to have an idea who the audience is. The first question is, who recognizes himself as the dev part? I see quite a lot, okay. And who recognizes himself as the ops part? Oh, yes, I think so, 50-50. That's very interesting. And who recognizes himself as dev and ops together? Okay, so now we can make the intersection of the first two and say that many of you have bright experience. Just another question, who is working with Oracle products? Okay, also here quite a lot. And who is a skilled Oracle DBA with about 20 years of experience starting from Oracle 6? One! Hey, there is one. Okay, that's great. Okay, so I prepared a presentation. Let's see if it fits. Just starting very shortly to who am I. I was born 1986 in Genoa, so I am Italian. And I have a master's degree in informatics, and I've worked for many years as a freelancer for Oracle DBA and developer. Then I came here to Switzerland, working for Oracle as a principal instructor. I were giving courses, trainings. And then 2010, I moved at La Mobilière. I think everybody knows who the Mobilière is. Starting as an Oracle technical lead, and then I took the responsibility of all of the team with the different persons and different databases. And the last 2 years at Mobiliar, I've worked on DB architectures and on open source databases. I joined in October again Oracle as a cloud platform architect. And I'm a proud member of the Swiss Oracle User Group. So I've been in the board of the Swiss Oracle User Group. We are organizing the events, and we are organizing quite a lot of meetups in different cities. Geneva still misses, but I hope it will join. Okay, what will this presentation not be about? I do not want to make marketing, commercials, licenses, I could say. Technical deep dive, I think it's not the right audience, and competition. I will not say that the Oracle products are better than other, because no, that's not the thing. I will talk about DevOps culture. It's basing on my experience at Mobiliar, but not only. And we will see something about use cases, architecture, databases, microservices. And I hope we will have fun, but the main thing is I will try to tell you a story. And the story starts in an insurance far, far away a long time ago. So like every story starts. Another question, who saw this film when it first came out at the cinema, 1977? Yes, it's much more than at the last developer meeting I attended at Swiss Mobiliar, because I had a presentation there too, and we had to discuss on topics, and I just asked who watched this film. And about 40 persons in the room, 2 persons raised their hand, and then by the microphone, a colleague who was in Hamburg said, "I'm raising my hand here in Hamburg too." So, yeah, it's, I have seen it. I think I was 9 or 10 or something like that. And just, this is how my career started. You know, here you have the Millennium Falcon and you have the Death Star. And at that time, the Death Star was a mainframe. Nobody wanted to work on a mainframe. Everybody said, I want to work with the Oracle products. You know, they are so actual. They have client-server architecture. That was great at the time. I do not want to work with a mainframe. And so my career started, and it went on for quite a lot of time. And at Mobiliar, we had just 3 different database systems. This was how the organization was set up. The organization, you see, there were the Oracle specialists, the MS SQL specialists that go deep, and the DB2 specialists. Indeed, these 2 guys here, the MS SQL, he looks really so. And then there were other DBAs that were more wide, set up more wide, not so in the depth, but they knew more about the different exchange of data between databases, and this was the way. And we had quite a lot of projects that with these 3 pillars we could answer to all of the project. We were quite successful. And yeah, at that time there was peace in the galaxies. You see, all of the heroes, they were there and they were committed, but you just see it. It's like a bubble, huh? Because every time a reorganization came, we were not affected. We were working, our system were working, everything was fine. So maybe we didn't look left and right at the time. And maybe this is the real way we acted. We took the head in the sand and didn't want to know anything about what was happening in the surrounding. And like in the Star Wars film, the JD are doing everything perfect, and they do not notice that something is going on. You know, when they go to the planet and they find the army of clones, and they ask, oh, what's that? On a planet that's not on the map, what is happening? And this was exactly what was happening to me at the time. I got an email. I got an email from a developer who was responsible for designing the new CI/CD pipeline, and he told me something. It was a very informal mail. Normally in companies you always look at what you are communicating with whom, and he just wrote me overnight. I think it was about 11 at night, and he said, Oracle and Docker together are difficult to handle. My forecast, Postgre will come. It only depends in which way. Step 1, find a DBA who's willing to support Postgre. I said, find a DBA? What? We have a strategy. We have the 3 pillars. What's that? Microservices would gain efficiency with Postgre. I know it does not fit with the official strategy. Okay, he knows it. But it will come. If not on-premise, then in Azure or Google, and probably overnight. But it will come. Shadow IT. So again, step 1, find a guy who wants to support it, or hire one, do what it needs. So I saw this email. I said, what is this guy talking about? And what do you think? How would you have approached to such an email if you're head of a database team with success, a good strategy? And I had to think about it a couple of times. Remember, I was in the ops part, so our focus was to be, I think, quite conservative. System have to run. This is our first goal. And why? So the first idea was to drop this mail. The second idea was to answer forward and said, hey, there's something going on. But I knew this guy. I had worked with him a couple of times. He's a bit particular, but he's a good guy. And therefore, my approach was curiosity. I said, there's something that I read it 2-3 times, and I saw some topics, Docker, microservices, and cloud. And I thought, okay, here's really something going on, because there are 3 topics. I heard about it quite a lot of time, but I never had to deal with them. So I decided to go a bit deeper. And this is what was going on, the microservices. These here are the microservices. Because the architecture, we For a long time, we had also the responsibility of the architecture of the database system, as we didn't have the architecture group didn't care. In the last years, new architectures were hired, and they started to think about microservices. And they also started with a microservice implementation. But in the first step, they said, we will do everything, but we won't care about the databases. So also in the CI/CD pipeline. In the first step, we won't care about databases. We just want to deploy the services, to deploy the software, and so on. And therefore, there was just a lack. We did not realize. Once I saw on a slide, next year, one of the main goals of the architecture will be integrating the databases in the CI/CD pipeline. So I knew that there was something going on. And talking with the developers, I had just a new feeling. The feeling was that now Oracle became the Death Stars, and the open source DBs were the new Millennium Falcon. So everybody was asking for new data stores. And so I tried to understand what it was all about it. There was something, yes, there was a building of the CI/CD pipeline. There was also the need or the wish to have a cloud-native database. Container databases, just something new. We want databases running in containers. Why? I couldn't understand it at that time. I admit I didn't understand what a container was. It's just a VM. No, definitively not. I had just quite much time to understand that it was not so. Automated testing. That was also something that they were trying to do, and they were not happy. Persistence layer for Docker and Kubernetes. The containers, the microservice were running on Docker containers on a Kubernetes platform. And they said, okay, we have to find something to persist. Data stores or cache. This was also a big question. I talked to an architect, and he said, look, about 70% of the databases that we're using today here at Swiss Mobilia, we are using it as a small cache. We really wouldn't need it to have a database for it. These are topics, but there was more. There was more also something about feelings. A bad relationship with the DBAs. The developer were not happy with us. Sometimes they get, we want to do this. No. We would, no. You have Oracle, you have SQL Server, you have DB2. Yes, but we would, no. You have Oracle. DBAs are old-fashioned. They do not understand. That's true. I should say that's true. Just before I was leaving, I had to talk with some of my colleagues in the DBA team, and at that time I was doing more open source and container stuff, and they say, I really do not understand what you're doing all the day. I said, so they are living in a separate world. They want to work locally offline, so they say, we want a Docker container to run in our laptops. We don't want to use the IT infrastructure. We don't like the IT infrastructure, so it's just a bigger problem. And I build it, I run it, I want to choose it. I am developing the application. I want to choose my technology I will use. I have the freedom to use the technology in the developing part. That was a big decision from the architects. I want to do the same with the data stores. And I'm not satisfied with the offering and with the service. Okay, and the question is, how did the developer see us as DBA? Like him, Chewy. Yeah? Chewy, you should imagine. I think he's about 3.5 meters high. My son has a book with all of the characters of Star Wars, and there is this described how gross it. So you start with Chewy. He talks a strange language, and you really do not understand it. Maybe you find the courage to go to him and say, I want documents. No. So I understand he doesn't smell very good. But he's one of the good guys. Huh? Don't forget, he's one of the good guys. The people who love him and the people who is friend of him, they understand him perfectly. So it's a question of communication. Maybe he's not very good in communicating, but he's a good guy. So we said, okay, some way we have to change our image, and we have to understand and find a communication path with the other people. And as we were arguing about about Postgre and why and how, just the next thing came. It was Rocket Chat. Somebody knows Rocket Chat? Okay. If you know Rocket Chat, it's a messaging system with a persistent messaging. And our developer wanted to exchange all of them email stuff with Rocket Chat. They said, we do not want anymore to have tickets, we do not want anymore to have emails, we just want to have a chat so that if someone needs something, he can look at the chat at their history. And they wanted to introduce it. And Rocket Chat relies on MongoDB. So again, X came and said, we need a Mongo database. The answer was, why? Because we want to run Rocket Chat. Okay, I will tell afterwards how the story went on with Rocket Chat. Want to persist, the persistent layer relies on MongoDB. Skype business was not an option, okay. MongoDB was not part of the IT strategy. Therefore we said, you have to deal with the architects if you really want to introduce it. Okay, then we can prepare together a paper. So one of the DBA who was willing or had some experience with Couchbase, he said, okay, I can do it. I can do the paper for the architects and explain what we want to do. And the use case is just put some JSON in and get some JSON out. Next use case, data market. So it was really like mushrooms everywhere. Another architect came and said, we are building an exchange. The data market is an exchange platform for data, and we need the data in JSON format from all of your Oracle databases. So we want a MongoDB for each Oracle database you have. Okay. And the next thing, Elasticsearch. Also there was an application that had a cockpit with performance problems, and there was one of the developers who knew Elasticsearch, and he put in a Docker container Elasticsearch, and it started working. Okay, and then here the question is, what are we doing now with Elasticsearch? Is it a database, or what is it exactly? At the time I didn't know what it was. So the main question at that time was the demand for new data stores everywhere. And the question is, why so many demands? The answer was that Mobiliar started to work in a different way. And the different way is with SAFe. So they were building some agile teams that were developing new capability and functionalities with the idea to go very fast release with short bug fixes and go to market very fast with some changes. You know, we had introduced a new claim system. It was a very big, a huge application, and Mobiliar had, I think, about 2-3 weeks when they could only insert claims. They were not able to use it 100% the system. So they decided and said, never again. This is why. And the dev team is a subset of the agile team. So the developer team, they decide together how to implement the feature, the stories. And you know, the idea behind DevOps is you build it, you run it. So the feature team should be responsible not only for the developing, but also for the operation. How and how deep the operation goes, this is the big question. I think that there you will find different approaches in different companies. But this was the idea, and I think I can understand it. If they say, I build it, I run it, I want to choose it. I want to choose which technology. I want to be independent. If I should address the problems, I want to use a technology I know or I trust in. Yeah, and the question again is, where are the DBAs and the SAFe? I just start this page here with a quote. A specialist is a man who knows more and more about less and less. I do not love this quote. I really do not love. I come from the specialist, but it's a way of seeing. And again, if you read here, you see that because these resources are specialized, often single source and typically quite busy, each art and solution train must engage the service personnel it needs when it needs them. So feature team have to engage the specialist. And which is the problem? This is again the problem. Communication. Do you really want to engage him? Maybe the simplest way is not to engage them and do everything by yourself. And then something will miss. Exactly as before the speaker before told, if you decide to split a database team, then yes, you will have some parts that can join very good the developer team, but you will lose something. You will lose the end-to-end responsibility. And here, in this case, you will just lose the experience people in your company had up to now. So it's harder to go in the decision and in the discussion rather than deciding to collaborate. Okay, and at that time we really began to make us to think about the future. We thought about Postgre, and we thought, could this here be the feature with quite a lot of strange animals that are here? These are the animals mapped to the Star Wars images, and the project will become very brighter, and will we be able to manage all of the projects? So such a big roof with only 3 little pillars. Yes, we will go back to the history at the end and just say something. The first thing is that here you see the microservice architecture. In the microservice architecture, you have the different microservices, and each microservice has a data store for itself. There is no communication between the different data stores, but it happens all on a higher level. So each microservice can run in a container. Each has a private database and model, and you can choose every technology you want. The communication, as I said, there is no communication between the single data stores. This can be a very good advantage because you can stop any microservice, do an upgrade, do a modification, and then start it again independently from all of the other microservices. But you will also lose something. We will talk about it later. And here are the pros and the cons. Here you see you have freedom in models for each microservice. You can model it separately. You have freedom in technologies. You can choose the best technology you want. For example, for JSON in, JSON out, you will choose probably a document store. A document store is a type of data store optimized for JSON handling. I'm not talking about products, I'm talking about different type of data stores. Or maybe you can choose a graph database, because you have to handle with dependency on different data in your database. So these are described in all of they normally call them NoSQL databases, but NoSQL is, I would say, not only SQL, is the real definition. You have full service isolation and scaling. On the other side, you are losing something. You're losing the consistency between microservices. Now here in this slide, you have a JSON, you have a relational data, and you have maybe a graph database. Just think about two relational databases. Two relational databases, when one database has maybe the offerings, the catalog, the product catalog, and the other database has the billing information. So if you want to buy something, first you look at the catalog, then you click OK, buy, and then you go to the next microservice. And the microservice says, OK, buying. Or maybe you want ticket for eBay burn. So normally you go to the page, you look at it, you click buy, and then you get a message, too late, because you're jumping to the next microservice, and the next microservice knows exactly how many tickets are still left. The problem is that if you then lose something, there is a problem here in all of the chain, then you may have data that is not synchronized anymore. Maybe you purchased the ticket, but you never got the message of them. Or on the other side, you think you have bought them and it did not happen in reality. So normally with relational databases, we had things like relational integrity. And you know that only when both of the operations were submitted and went good, you had the message back, commit. It went. Now you don't have it anymore. You have to demand it to the next layer. Cross-service transaction require consistency. Okay, I said it. No common data access role or security models. This is also very interesting. For each of the different products, you will have to deal with security. We will come also on this topic here. And also an operational sprawl. Here I'm more talking about the operations. If you introduce a document store and a graph database, and you are expecting a service, as a developer, you're expecting something that works, that backups are working, that disaster recovery is working, that your data is stored right, and that you have enough space for your data, and so on. Then you need persons who have to design it, automate it, and support it. And this is not normally in a company is not given. Team lead of the database first has to ask, is there anybody who wants to support it? Because if he asks, then maybe he finds someone, and that would just be easier to adopt rather than saying you will have to, because then he really won't be happy of doing it. And there are two approaches. So the two approaches we will talk about now will be about the single model and the multi-model. So you can choose between having many different technologies or just having one technology that covers all of the needs. And we'll have a look at the two different approaches here. Yeah, you have to choose. It's a strategy at the end. And it's a strategy that you have to discuss between developers and operations. Just to understand, because at the end, the funny thing is that if one of the two parties is not happy, nobody will be it. Because you will encounter problems and problems and problems. You have to do it together. So here you see the two different approaches. And you see, for example, here are a Mongo database and a Neo4j database for the graph. But the other possibility is just to use the Oracle technology. Oracle supports JSON, more and more better, and support graphs. So it's possible. Just a little slide about JSON, storage in the Oracle database. This here is the way until 12.2, until 18C, version 18C, Oracle was supporting JSON, and you see here you have the flex field that is a CLOP. And I've seen a presentation of one of our developers from Mobilia at a DevOps meeting. I said, yeah, you know, the implementation of Oracle, putting JSON in CLOPs. It was very disgusting. I said, I do not understand exactly why this is discussed, but maybe there can be some enhancements. But starting with the last release, there is a JSON data type in the Oracle database. So there Oracle is working on it. This is the binary JSON type. You see this is slides that I got directly from one of our developers. He said, I did some tests with it, I implemented it, I did some tests with it, and tests at customers. And we have a very increased performance about it. We're using compression, so reduce I/O, and we have a dictionary-based encoding schema, and so on, and so on. So Oracle is investing in the JSON part. The interesting thing here is that you can take a JSON, store it in the database as a JSON string, and you can query it as a relational table. So you can take your JSON, transform it in a relational table, or just join it with other relational tables. So if you have a DBA or something who's developing, who knows very good the SQL, he can just transform this JSON in a SQL and do some operation with it. And on the other side, you can also generate JSON from relational tables. And you can say, okay, I'm extracting my relational tables. You see, more than one table, so also with joins. I can extract it and I can transform it in JSON files. On Friday, I had a strange idea. I said, well, there will be so many things to talk about the JSON data format. I do not know if everybody is interested, but I said, maybe we can call this guy here. It's the only picture that's not related to Star Wars, but it's just for after the call. So this is the guy. This is the person who is developing the JSON part in the Oracle database. The story is very simple. He noticed that something was going on, like the microservice in the Oracle company, and he went to his manager and he said, Jason, no, we won't do this stuff. And then he and a colleague of him went directly to the lead architect of Oracle, Andrew Mendelsohn, and said, you know, my manager does not see it, but I'm sure that we have to do something here. And he talked directly to him, and Andrew Mendelsohn said, okay, go for it. So this is the way he started. It's a good mentality. He's a developer, so he showed me the matrix at a conference. He said, oh, look, I show you what we are doing next. And he showed me the Oracle code, so I see the Oracle code. And he's a very enthusiastic person, and I said, why not? If you want, after the speech, there is a coffee break, but who wants can remain here, and I will set up a conference with him. And you can ask him everything. You will make him happy if you ask him something about the JSON feature, but you may also ask him how it is the organization at Oracle, if they're agile, if they're working with DevOps. I don't know, I think about everything. This is what we remain to. So at the end, I will ask if somebody wants to stay, and then if somebody is there, we will set up the call. I do not know if the infrastructure will work, so we did not test it, we did not prepare it, it's just very spontaneous. Okay, we talked about JSON. Here is another very interesting thing. It's an update and licensing. You know why I'm showing something about licenses? Well, I'm showing it because I knew that spatial and graph were features that were residing in the Oracle database too. But until December 2019, they were part of an extra option. So customer had to pay for it separately on top of their licenses. And I always say, I won't propose it to nobody because I don't feel good in proposing in something that other open source products are doing, and they have to pay for it. And I think that many product managers, there was a big change in the product management in the last years. And the big change was about many young people coming in the product management, and they said, we cannot do it. If we want really be a converged database, a polyglot database, then we have to give it for free. And at the end, it came through. So, starting up to 5th December 2019, if you want to use the graph database, graph option and the spatial option in the database, and you have a standard edition license or an enterprise edition license, you can do it for free. So no more license constraint. Spatial, graph, and RDF graph. You see you have the possibility to do spatial analysis in the database. You have more than 100 SQL spatial analysis operator. You can filter, combine, transform, measure. You have all of the different use cases. There's quite a lot of stuff. Just consider it. If you are designing a new application and you have already Oracle in the field, think about it. The same thing for property graph analysis. For example, for Business Insight, you have quite a lot of algorithms and mutation operation. You have APIs, and the same is for the RDF graphs. So I won't go here in the deep, but just consider it. An interesting thing, I don't know, did someone hear about the Oracle Labs? Nobody. The Oracle Labs are the global research team of Oracle. And these are all young people, many of them PhDs. And one of the biggest labs worldwide is based in Zurich. So they are organizing meetups and hackathons and things like that. I think the oldest of them is about 33. So very, very young people. And one of the products here they are working on is on this parallel graph analytics, the PGX. It's a fast parallel built-in memory graph. So it's very interesting to know that part of the Oracle code, the research and development part, is here in Switzerland. I've seen them quite a lot of time at meetups. They're doing incredible things. So just keep in mind. Again, with the spatial and graph, also all of the machine learning algorithms are for free now. So you have the possibility, if you have some data scientists, you have the possibility to do data exploration directly in the database. The strategy of Oracle is just keep the algorithms by the data. Don't move data around. Just do it on the database. If the data resides there, do there your data exploration. And if you want, build your models with it. Again, for free. So, come back to the use cases. A Mongo database for each relational DB to export data in JSON format. No, you really do not need to introduce new data stores. Just first have a look what the capabilities are in the Oracle database. We did it. They were developing, developer told, yeah, we have some problems with it, and the guy who will join us later, I told him about it, and he said, okay, I can come. I told him, you know, we do not have budget. Why budget? I come because I'm interested in working together with customers. So he came from Hamburg, stayed 2 days with us, and at the end, there was no need anymore because they solved all of the problems. On the other side, Rugged Chat. In this case, I would say keep Mongo, because the product relies on this data store. So try to change it, you will never be happy. On the other side, you will have to introduce a new database system. And this will be the next part. What was the experience at Mobiliar by introducing a next database system? Just a little thing about the infrastructure. So you said, okay, we can use microservices, we can use the converged database approach. How does Oracle map it? Oracle map it with an option that's called Oracle DB multi-tenant. The idea is to have different, very light-weighted, so-called pluggable databases in a container database. So this is has nothing to do with Docker. It does not run on Docker. You may, but I do not think it's a good idea. You run it on the machines where your database resides, and you have the connection to the different PDBs that are very lightweight. Here you can see it. You have a container. That's the root container, then you have little PDBs. And each PDBs can be a microservice because it's totally isolated from the other PDBs. But it's still centrally managed. So you have, for the operation, you have to do only one upgrade of the container. And you can move PDBs from one container to the other, transparent to the application. It's a very interesting feature. At Mobiliar, we were a reference customer for this feature, and we decided to adopt it. It's, as I said, it's container visualization. You manage many at once, so you have one patch, one backup, you can do online cloning, and you can do online relocation from one container to another, so you have less downtime in patching and in upgrading. It's we use it, and there is a blog entry from Mobiliar after I went away, where they are describing how they upgraded in, I think, 4 hours about 150 databases. So, and here, this is how Swiss Mobiliar, so this is a presentation from Mobiliar. A colleague of mine showed at Oracle OpenWord. It's quoted. And this is the architecture. The architecture was development, version control, then goes to TeamCity with a continuous integration. And in the moment when the new service is deployed, it looks in the registry, in the Docker registry, but also in the Oracle registry, and sees, does a PDB for this microservice exist? If not, it automatically creates a new PDB. So it's automation. Docker to the registry, Kubernetes deployment, the image starts, and the connect identifier is given back to the microservice. Everything works in less than 10 minutes, and there is no need for a DBA in all of this pipeline. So the role of the DBA changed. Not more the person who is starting and creating the databases, just for microservice and for small databases, but the person who looks to the interface. So again, a change. Maybe this is just more a change rather than say, okay, we move the database to the developers, and no. The DBAs had to look for the infrastructure and have to provide services. Here you see some numbers. How many PDBs were created and dropped during 1.5 years? So more than 2,000. It ends in October, so it's going on. But these are the last numbers I have. About 1,200 PDB creation, mostly by night, automatically, and also deletion. That's incredible, because normally you will have, as an operation, you will have problems in detecting which databases do not have any more a service behind them, because the service was removed, but nobody thinks about telling the DBAs about it. So this was a great success. Yeah. And this was a self-made solution through a REST API that was built on from the DBAs and the developer together. Said together, that was a big point. If you want, you can have it out of the box with the Oracle REST data services. So you can just do the deployment of new PDBs and manage the infrastructure, but you can also manage all of the table creation and so on with this data services. On the other side, let's go back to Mongo database. Decision, we remain on Mongo. We want a new database service. And in a company, normally, you have to go through some steps. The first is the IT architecture, JD Council. These people are very focused on their topic, very visionary, but also it was also always a burden to go to them and tell them what we want to do. You have to prepare papers, you have to give it to all of the architects. They were looking, they were given back with questions, and you have exactly to describe what you want to do. And normally, you had more than one iteration, because then question arise, and what's about this feature, what's about this, what do I want to do? So You have to think that for introducing a new database system in a company, you will have to deal with some burden. Which are the aspects that you have to cover, or they told us you have to cover? It's just about monitoring and logging. Well, Mobiliar was using Grafana for that. How is the integration, but how is the life cycle working? Yes, you can set it up, a container or something like that for some time. But you have to deal with the upgrades. How do you want to use it? Which kind of data? That's very interesting. I never thought about it, but it depends the different features and the different expectation from a database system deal with the data you want to store in it. If you have high restricted data or restricted data, you have to deal with much more features like disaster recovery, backup and recovery, point-in-time recovery, and so on, rather than if you use public data. Security officer told me, well, you're using public data, and you lose all of the data. You can load it again. Yes, no. If so, no problem. No need for security, or just low security patterns. Support, who will support, and who will do the operation? Will it be somebody in the DB team, or will it be someone in the feature team, or will they do it together? This is a big question, because you have to see the border, and which point will be the feature team, and which point will be the operation. Availability, scalability, backup and restore. Some products do not have exactly the same backup and restore capabilities a relational database have. Many always think that every database has exactly the same capabilities. Elasticsearch, for example, doesn't have a point-in-time recovery. It just has snapshots. If you lose data between one snapshot and the other, it's gone. You have to know it. And you have to custom the use case in this way. Don't underestimate security. This was also a point. Here you see our security officer said, look, there are quite a lot of benchmarks here and a lot of how-tos. So I had a look at them when I tried to introduce Elastic and Postgre, and they are about 70, 80 pages with recommendations. And I had to go through all of them. Don't underestimate it. You will have. And last thing, keep the use case in mind. For example, the pork's nest. You want to build a nest for a little pork. This is the creature in the last film. And if this is the architecture design, then you are doing something wrong. Just for show you, Postgre, when they started a POC with Postgre, it was a colleague of mine who was doing it. And you see, here was the initial design. What was the problem here? The problem was that he tried to map one-to-one. He wanted to map one-to-one, thank you, I can go on. He wanted to map one-to-one the Oracle architecture that was built in about 10 years or 15 years with a new Docker service with Postgre. So when I had to hand over, I asked him, but does this part work? It should. And this part, it should. And this part, it should. And if I said something that said it should, it means he doesn't know. So I said, okay, let's try to reduce it. But still, you see, you have data stores, you have different containers, one for backup, one for restore, and so on in the architecture. And this was at the beginning the problem with the mail. The mail was telling, we want Postgre because we want a solution for improving the development. But what was never mentioned was the use case. And then I talked to the chief architect, and he said, this is my use case. The use case is to have a Docker and a Postgres database within the Docker container with no persistency, just for do some configuration for the microsystems. And config data may be manipulated at runtime. If the containers crash, they will load again the container with the configuration stored in the container. And if they want to persistent change a configuration, they build a new container. So no way, no need to do persistency, no need to try to map to NFS shares or to other storage. About 1 year for a very, very small use case. And more, I do not believe that Postgres was here the right solution. Postgres is not thought for, it's not a cloud native pattern, a cloud native database. Maybe some other stores, or maybe just a in-memory database like H2 could have been a much more better solution here. So keep in mind. And the next thing is also who is responsible for the operation. This is a very interesting point, because normally operation here is, we expect a service. When we're developing, we expect a service with quite a lot of capabilities. If you try to build a new one, you have to decide who will care for which service. And in the DevOps culture, it should be the feature team that should do the operation, but where do they start the operation, where do they stop the operation, and where is starting the services? So it's a big discussion you have to do inside of the feature team. Today, it seems that this is, I've just brought it as an example. It seems that more and more people want to have services that are doing everything autonomous, like the autonomous database. This database here is self-patching, self-repairing. You don't need to patch, you don't need to repair, you don't need to do performance tuning. Its security is built in per default. So this, I think, is more the idea from a developer point of view, what I want. Where it will run, will it be an autonomous database, or will there be a feature team, a database team, who will give me exactly the same features? I don't care. But this is what I am expecting. So I think here, in an organization, we should think who will care for what. And one big solution we tried is a COP, community of practice. Here you see different people with different minds that are working together. What is a COP? A community of practice is an organized group of people who have common interest in a specific technical or business domain. For example, Elasticsearch, we built a COP that was made up of developer and of operation people, 2 DBAs and 3 or 4 developers. And we promoted it. We said, okay, we will look for every problem, every enhancement request, every question, we will look together. We met, I think, once a month or just on demand when somebody had some questions. And it was a very good experience. If you're planning to do something in the DevOps, just do not forget the communities of practice. So, came at the end of the presentation. My takeaways, or your takeaways, what I wanted to tell you is just, if you're just running some environment with some capabilities, think also about exploring the feature you just have in the house, the capabilities you just have. Do not always look for new things, but try to understand, maybe if you're using the feature you already have, you will be much faster in deploying, and you won't have to go to different iteration, for example, with an architecture or with a security officer. Just for an example, the Mongo database, it took about 2 years to go through the architecture and through the security officers. Most of the problems were in the hardening guides. They didn't accept the thing, and at the end, there was a temporary permission, just for the application Rocket Chat. So there is quite a lot of work behind it. When you design new architecture, always keep in mind the use case. It's very simple. It's very fast that you come from an experience and you say, okay, I'm trying to build something that covers every use case. No, it should be the other way around. First, think of the use case, look what you need, and then you may start with a very small use case and with small capabilities. Maybe you don't need a backup and a recovery. Keep in mind that there will be some overhead, and talk together. These are my giveaways. Just for if somebody is interested, there's a marketing slide. If somebody wants to test the Oracle Cloud, I have a special offer. You just have to give me an email, and you will get 500 francs credit without credit card. If you're interested, just come after the presentation and talk with me. It's something new that it's organized here in Switzerland. And again, here's a meetup on the 3rd of March. It's with Swisscode, State of Geneva, and Energy Web Foundation about blockchains. Just a colleague who told me, can you say something about it if somebody is interested? There are quite a lot of customers that are talking about the blockchain experience. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paolo.